Well, good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today, and I'm really looking forward to spending some time discussing embedding responsible business behaviour. This is something that we as an organisation have really come to appreciate. From our experience, there's a huge difference between those who look at different ways that they may rate as being responsible and just tick it and say, yes, we can do this. And those who've really embedded it through what they do, that it's just part of the lifeblood of the organisation. So what I'm going to do this morning is just have a look at what we mean by embedding responsible business behaviour, why it's important, and then talk about how the Good Business Charter can be such a useful framework to do that. I'm going to be using slides. So I shall press here and go. So what is responsible business behaviour? Some use the terminology ESG to govern their environmental, social and governance approach to business. That is, you hear quite a lot of ESG ratings in the world of investment. ESG on its own doesn't actually mean anything. It's usually linked to ESG ratings, ESG approach to your business. Others speak of CSR, corporate social responsibility. This was used in the past quite a lot to talk about how a company would give money to charity, or they would give a lot of voluntary time to charity. To be honest, often it was just something of a PR exercise to make the company look good, and perhaps only that one department focused on it and the rest of the company didn't really see that in practice. But that is another term that's used. More recently, people speak of being purpose-driven. Now, that is about the fact that you operate as part of purpose. Purpose is coming out from all that you're doing. There's a wider purpose to your existence. The reality is, and even Julian Richer, our founder, would say that purpose can be a bit beyond what really you are when you set up your business. So he had the idea to sell hi-fis, to sell TVs. Is that a wider purpose of well-being? Well, people want to buy them and you can make a profit out of it. But purpose-driven is much more about everything flowing from that. And we don't necessarily use that language because really you can be responsible in whatever way that you're focused. And some organisations are much more purpose-driven, as it were. They're much more about, perhaps their purpose is about sustainability than others. So what we like to talk about is treating people and planet well and balancing that with profit. So responsible business behaviour treats people and planet well, and they balance that with profit. This means they work to ensure that all stakeholders, especially employees, suppliers and customers, are treated fairly and with respect, and that their activities are environmentally sustainable. This also results in greater productivity and a more successful business. It makes good business sense to do these things. Responsible businesses are committed to paying their fair share of tax. They recognise the contribution that makes, that the state makes at educating their workforce, caring for their health, and providing infrastructure that enables them to do business. They want a level playing field for all, where everyone, all businesses in the UK are following the rules in both the spirit and letter of the law. This is what we mean by responsible business behaviour. So why does it matter? Well, first of all, it's morally right. There's a sense that it's just not okay to make profit while trampling over people and our planet, while just thinking only about yourself and what you can get out of it and not caring about those around you. But as I've already mentioned, it makes good business sense. If you treat your employees well, it will result in greater productivity because they will come to work happier, they'll feel valued, they'll understand what's expected of them, they'll feel they've got a voice, they'll feel included, and as a result, they are going to do a better job. They're also going to give better customer service because they're happier and they are focused on giving a good service. They believe in what they're doing, and that comes out of the way that they then treat people. And there's less staff turnover, which actually is a huge financial saving. There's less cost on recruitment, on staff time to run interviews. And of course, with less turnover, your staff are more experienced, and therefore, as a business, you are likely to be operating better and again become more productive. Paying suppliers promptly, it improves resilience. It makes you, if you have been paying all your suppliers promptly and then you get into a difficult situation and you need to ask a supplier for a little bit of leeway, they're more likely to offer that if the relationship is good, if as a rule you pay your suppliers promptly. So it's morally right, it makes good business sense, and stakeholders are demanding it. 97% of consumers in a 2021 poll said they think it's important for a business to act responsibly. Basically, the huge majority think it is important that businesses act responsibly. The most recent Institute of Business Ethics survey found that 47% of respondents felt that corporate tax avoidance was the most important ethical issue for them. That's interesting, isn't it? We think about sustainability and how much people are worried about the climate and the environment, but actually in this particular survey, it's corporate tax avoidance that is the most important ethical issue. And this has topped the list for the 10th year running. And almost half of younger workers want the company they work for to demonstrate a commitment to ESG. And in fact, 20%, 1 in 5 have turned down a job offer when the company's ESG commitments were not in line with their values. And that is only going to grow as more and more younger people come into the workforce. It's morally right, it makes good business sense, and stakeholders are demanding it. So for me, there's a real clarion call there. It is clear that this needs to be more of a priority for many businesses. And a lot of businesses, they already do this, and they've been sat there thinking it's not fair that other businesses treat people so badly, don't pay their taxes in this country, the list could go on, don't care about the environment. And thankfully, there is a real groundswell of opinion that is making businesses of all sizes and shapes look at this carefully. Our advice is to start now. Sometimes an organisation must think, yes, we need to do something about this. Let's schedule a meeting, we'll have a talk about it at the end of the year, or maybe next year that will be our focus. The problem is that the other pressures of running a business, of which there are many, problems with the supply chain, situations with the cost of living, high energy bills, they tend to push it out. So it's best to start now, even if it's something small. It's really important to use a framework to help you establish the way you're going to move forward responsibly. Otherwise, people don't know where to start. It's such a huge area that people don't know what to do, where to go, what to start. So to use a framework is a clear way to establish how you're going to move forwards on this journey of responsible business behaviour. You then need to communicate that framework internally to your colleagues, because let's remember, we've just looked at the fact that they want to work for a responsible business. So it's no good a company being responsible at a senior leadership level and not letting their staff know. It's really important that it is communicated internally to your colleagues and, of course, externally to customers and other stakeholders, because they want to know that they are supporting, supplying, purchasing from a responsible business. So it's really important that you tell them. The Good Business Charter, which was founded by Julian Richer and works closely with the TUC, the IOD and the FSB, that's to bring in the voice of workers with the TUC, IOD and FSB, that's the Institute of Directors and the Federation of Small Businesses, is making sure we're hearing from businesses. It's been designed to be such a framework of 10 minimum standards, which can be clearly and consistently communicated across all sizes and sectors of organisation. We have 10 components. 5 of them are around employees, the real living wage, fairer hours and contracts, employee wellbeing, employee representation, quality, diversity and inclusion. And then there's another 5, environmental responsibility, of course, paying fair tax, commitment to customers, ethical sourcing, prompt payment to suppliers. Does it cover everything you can do in the responsible business space? No, but it's a pretty good framework that covers the vast majority, and a lot of other things will fit in underneath. Even when people talk about, well, what about the old CSR, the giving to charity? Well, that's all part of our giving back to the community, which comes in as part of our paying fair tax. Perhaps in time that will become more of a community component, but at the moment the focus is on paying fair tax. But this is a framework that we think will develop over time as the law changes and as we hear from our businesses and as we seek to keep pushing forwards. What we want to provide at this stage is a benchmark for good business. That all sounds very well, but really the focus of today is to look at some practical examples of what that means to really embed it. And the best way to do that is to just go through different things that may spark ideas for you. Many of these you may be doing, others you may not, but it just helps see how we really embed our responsible business practices. Number 1, ensure employees have a meaningful way to raise both suggestions and concerns. Perhaps that's through a forum, perhaps that's in those regular one-to-one meetings you might have with the team, perhaps a suggestion box. But it's really important that it's meaningful, so employees and that employees are encouraged to do it, so they know how to raise concerns, how to raise suggestions, and then they see that these suggestions are taken and looked at a senior level and decisions are made and it's taken into account. It's meaningful. There's simple software out there that helps measure employee well-being. If you're a small organisation, there's some really simple ways to check in with your colleagues, like weekly morale scores. That's one thing that Julian Richards has. Well, his business isn't so small either, but it works for our small charity and it works through the Richer Sounds network of shops as well, where people just score themselves on 1 to 10. And it's just a great way to, when a low score comes in, often you know it's coming because you already know what's going on. But if you don't, it operates as a really good check as to, oh, okay, I need to check in and see if everything's going okay. Set up easy mechanisms so that you can just be sure that you're aware of how your team are doing. Involve colleagues in assessing the full environmental impact of your activities. I really think that when you think of all those younger people who really care about our planet, and then you might have just one department in an organisation or one person who's responsible for the environmental side. If you involve more people, they've got ideas. I can guarantee they will have ideas and they'll be excited to be involved because then they are having a further impact on our planet. So involve them in looking at the full environmental impact and create innovative ways to minimise your impact, to care for the planet, work together and get excited about it. If ethical sourcing is new for you, start by looking at your biggest supplier and ask them about their ethical practices. If they're GBC accredited, then that's a good start. In fact, I was talking to someone the other day who told me they'd moved insurer as a basis of this component of ethical sourcing and were able to find an insurer that was GBC accredited that they could move to. If you're not comfortable with the level of compliance on basic human rights, and if it's possible, move supplier. Publish a clear commitment to your customers on your website and deal swiftly with complaints. There will still be complaints. You will still make mistakes, but it's about being clear on your commitment to your customers, address their complaints and make improvements for future customers. And don't forget to use your website to explain your commitment more generally to being a responsible business. There's a real opportunity there to say, if you're GBC accredited, we are, and this is what we stand for, and write it all out there. You could form a responsible business group in your organisation that meets monthly or quarterly to assess what else you can do and just keep the issues on the agenda, making sure that it doesn't all slide. Consider allowing flexible working opportunities from day one for all colleagues and ensure even colleagues working their initial probation are receiving the real living wage. It's about making sure that all these things are thought through and worked through the organisation. Assess your recruitment practices for equality, diversity and inclusion. Do you use inclusive images? Is there inclusive language used in your job adverts? Do they include flexible working? That immediately will make it more appealing to women who have childcare responsibilities and may need to flex work around that. Ask yourself, do I really need to request qualifications for this role? Assess whether you can source things more locally, which will also improve your journey to net zero by reducing your scope 3 emissions. Particularly for small businesses, the world of net zero and getting there is very complex, and we need to just look at ways that we can simplify this and source locally and just reduce our carbon footprint. Set targets in each of the 10 areas of the GBC. This is a great way each year to just set some clear targets in each one and report on them annually. Why not publicize it on your website? Say these are things we do and this is what we're working towards. We'll see an example later of an organisation that does just that. These are just a few examples. There are hundreds others we could have chosen, but it just helps give you a flavour of what it looks like when responsible business behaviour is flowing through an organisation. The Good Business Charter, I just wanted to include these endorsements of why this could be a useful framework for this purpose. So Francis O'Grady, who was General Secretary of the TUC between 2013 and 2022, said the Good Business Charter has a key role to play in making the working world a better place. As organisations join, we hope they will in turn inspire others and bring about a general positive movement for change. And that is happening. We're seeing organisations change something in order to receive GBC accreditation. For us, Jill Ripley, CFO at Schroders Personal Wealth, says the GBC's 10 components are a simple to understand but extremely robust framework that show us how we should think about responsibility and sustainability. It's been great to have someone say that to us. Schroders Personal Wealth is a joint venture between FTSE 100 Schroders and Lloyds Bank. So they have access to all sorts of things, but they have used the GBC because it's simple to understand and yet robust. And Martin Matteig at the Federation of Small Businesses says, small businesses are embedded in their community and do so much good for their employees, supply chains and the planet. But this isn't often recognised or celebrated. The Good Business Charter provides a way to demonstrate this on your website or to your clients for the very first time. And for us, it's an absolute privilege to have so many small businesses as part of the Good Business Charter. We are delighted that there is this way that they can clearly show their responsible business behaviour in a way that's accessible to them. And interestingly, when we talk to some of our large organisations, they're pretty excited about that too, because when they're thinking about scope 3 for their environmental responsibility, they're wondering how can we work with our small organisations in our supply chain? And the Good Business Charter is just a great way for them to then engage the small businesses and ask them to commit to the GBC. So it's been great to see that it works in both those ways, really. Here are some of our accredited organisations, just to show that this is a framework that can work for very small organisations, right up to large organisations. The public sector's there. I've got a couple of councils looking at how we develop it in different places. The Soil Association is a charity, and we have other charities as well. We're right the way from Aviva down to Bellevue Law, which is a small law firm, and everything else in between. So I'm going to finish off by just whipping through the benefits of GBC accreditation and how that fits into this sense of embedding. So it is a clear way to communicate internally your commitment to people and planet. And we set minimum standards across the 10 components. So it's really easy to understand what we stand for. Saffron Building Society, when they joined, they took one component every month and they communicated it with their employees. They explained what it meant and what they were doing in that space. And therefore, the whole organisation knows about the Good Business Charter and is committed into it. But it also means that they know that the company they work for cares about them. It's a credible third-party signpost to consumers and other stakeholders of your responsible business behaviour. As we grow and as some of these significant organisations on board and working with different trade associations, we get to show that this is a credible signpost that people can see, oh, these guys, they're responsible because they're able to commit to all 10. And there's plenty of businesses that can't. So, it is a bar that not everyone is in a position to do. So this is a way that you can show, well, yeah, we're committed to these 10. Let's be recognised for that. It's an effective strategy for good growth because, as I've said, more and more people are looking to shop with, work for, invest in responsible businesses. And also, if you're doing all the things that we stand for, then you are going to be more productive. You are going to be more sustainable in the long term. You get to be part of a network of organisations leading the way in continual improvement in the GBC components. It really, sometimes people talk about the sort of tick box nature, and it really isn't. Yes, okay, you either pay the real living wage or you don't. You either pay your suppliers promptly or you don't. But the others are all about continual improvement and how can we keep pushing ourselves to do better and to raise the bar and inspire one another with case studies, with events, and just hearing from some of our organisations. It's free for the first year, only £25 a year afterwards for organisations with less than 51 employees, and £1 per employee for those with 51 plus. That's capped at £2,500 for private sector, £500 a year for public and third sector organisations. No one can say we're in this for the money. Julian Richer is kindly funding it and subsidising it until one day membership income can cover our costs. But we're just about finding a way to recognise all the good guys, all the responsible businesses and charities and public sector organisations that care about this and that embed it through their organisation. There's no reams of paperwork. You apply on our website through self-certification, but compliance is monitored through effective promotion of the accreditation, use of whistleblowing mechanisms, background checks that we do on accreditation, and the work that you now have to do to renew each year. We're biased, of course, but we feel that this does provide a framework that can just get you started on your journey, or if you're already way down, it's just a clear way to communicate internally and externally what you're doing. As I mentioned, we come back to Schroders Personal Wealth. I mentioned that we talk about this idea of setting targets. And this is just one example that has just blown us away, really, of how to embed the Good Business Charter, how to embed responsible business behaviour. Schroders Personal Wealth set up a responsible business group. They put together an annual report. They put it around the Good Business Charter, as you can see, and they then have a page for each component, what they're doing and what they plan to do. And as Joel continues to say in his quote, the GBC's 10 components certainly reflect the business standards that are important to us and which I am genuinely passionate about. As we move closer to our targets, we'll begin asking, how can we improve? What's the next target? How do you get from good to better to best? It's about always striving to succeed and exceed. That's what it's about, really. We're just looking for ways that, for us, it's just the more people that can shout out about the importance of responsible business behaviour, the more people that can spread the word, it becomes a movement, a positive movement for change, as Francis O'Grady said. That's how the framework works. That's how we see it operating in practice. Schroders Personal Wealth is one medium-sized company example of how they are embedding it. But I'm really delighted to pass over now to hear how other organisations are using that on the ground. So I will come out of here and stop sharing. And I am going to ask, first of all, Rebecca from Goltries Lodge just to share, give a few minutes, just how she is embedding responsible business behaviour in her environment. Rebecca.
Hi, thank you very much, Jenny. Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca. My husband and I own Goltries Lodge Hotel and Forest Restaurant on Low Petergate in the centre of York. Goltries Lodge has 12 bedrooms. It's very traditional, lots of original oak beams, lots of nice original fireplaces. Forest is a very quirky restaurant. It's named after the ancient royal forest of Goltries, which is a bit of a nod to the history of the hotel. 4 years ago, when we bought the business, our aspirations included saving, I'll do little D's because I suppose that's a that's a subjective quote, but saving a Georgian listed building and refurbishing it using traditional techniques to regain its former glory, to turn around a well-loved but tired and dated hotel, to do a complete overhaul of the restaurant to make it somewhere that we ourselves might like to visit. This resulted in the rebrand under the new name Forest, which happened somewhere during all the COVID palaver. We wanted to create a place that has good vibes, and this has become an unofficial motto of ours that we say often. We wanted to have a soundly run and well-operated business. We maybe wanted to make a little bit of money doing it. We wanted to retain the fantastic team of staff, many of whom have worked there for years. Our longest serving team member has about 23 years under his belt. We wanted to hire some new team members to help us grow, and we wanted those team members to be happy to be working for us. And we wanted to have a fantastic restaurant, which to us meant using the best local produce and to make home-cooked tasty meals. So I suppose that we assumed that doing all of that would make us a good business. So we happily operated in our own merry way for some time. We did our thing, we achieved many of our goals, but in reality, we had no governance and very little self-reflection on whether, in fact, we were actually a good business. And perhaps, if I am being honest, we were a little bit defensive about areas that we fell short. So then, a couple of years in, we learned about the Good Business Charter. They gave us direction in the form of 10 very easy to understand commitments to work through. Luckily, as it happened, we did achieve some of them already. There were also improvements to be made. And the Good Business Charter gave us a really nice targeted plan to work towards. So I didn't think you'd want to listen to me go through each of the 10 points one by one. So I actually thought what I'd do is highlight a couple of points where we found them slightly more challenging, and then how we went around those and achieved them. With us, any of the points relating to staff were our top priority. We really want to be a good employer. I've worked for bad employers, I've worked for good employers, and I remember them, you know, since I started working at about 14 in a pub, and what used to frustrate me and what used to motivate me. Hospitality, as most people know, has a reputation for long hours and low pay in many cases. And in conjunction with a lot of other things, including the fact that I work with the Hospitality Association York, this is something that the industry is trying to fix. There's also a national chef shortage in the industry. Wages are by far our largest outgoing cost, and we have a target to keep our wages at 30% of our turnover. As I said, we took on our business as a going concern and therefore inherited many of the team on an old, fairly outdated contract, including some 0-hour contracts. The management structure was also fairly inefficient. We had a lot of team members with management titles, very few responsibilities, therefore a little bit of confusion and not necessarily the pay that goes along with having the word manager in your title. So we undertook a complete consultation and restructure. So we started off with 3 duty managers. They were basically allowed to answer the phone and work the till, and that was what gave them their management title. They were not particularly more highly paid than anybody else. There wasn't an awful lot that made them a manager. So what we did, we restructured them, and those 3 duty managers, we gave titles of house manager, housekeeping supervisor, and restaurant manager. We gave them specific expectations within those 3 roles, pay increases for the extra responsibility. This then meant that they then managed the more junior members of the team. So they were then managed properly, and we were able to increase their wages a little bit as well, for the fact that they weren't really all very junior. They all had specific capabilities, and they all sort of achieved what we needed from them. So this worked really well for us, because it did mean that obviously the overall wage costs did go up, which is obviously a concern for people wanting to pay the real living wage. But actually the output from the team increased so much more than the core wage costs did. So essentially we shifted from having many, many low paid staff to fewer higher paid staff who are stronger in what they do. So we feel that's a more efficient model. And I just wanted to share that because I thought that that was actually a way that a lot of people could maybe get over the initial worry of saying, well, how do I go from being a minimum wage employer to a real living wage employer or higher? Because when I said that to our manager, he told me how much that would cost us for a year, and he was quite daunted by that fact. And we said, right, well, we can't just do a blanket wage increase then. There has to be a structure behind it. So it took a little while, but overall we're the better for it. So that's how we overcame that one. Still sticking with staff, another key improvement that we made with regards to the point on fair hours and contracts, specifically with regards to the chefs, we have implemented a 4-day working week, which is sort of the goal that all chefs want nowadays. Even with the real living wage, and actually most of our chefs are above that anyway, there is a cap on what you can pay people and turn a profit in a hotel and restaurant, because there is a cap on what your customers will pay for a product and a service, which I'll come on to later. But it isn't all about pay. Chefs often work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. They don't see their families. There are many things that they find frustrating in their role, and it isn't all about pay. So this 4-day working week is brilliant. They work long shifts still, 4 days a week, but then they get 3 days off a week, which we've had most of our chefs work for us because they saw that on the job description and they went for that. So again, it's just another way of looking at it without going, right, we need to pay somebody more than we budgeted for at the minute. It's again, like Jenny said, it's looking at different things that people find a benefit and make them enjoy working somewhere and implementing it. So that's what we've done with the chefs, which they're very grateful for. And just incidentally, all of our team are paid by the hour. So it's not one of these things where they're on a salary, and then if they do any overtime, actually they get knocked below either the real living wage or whatever your benchmark is in your business, because that happens in hospitality all the time. So paying people by the hour for every hour they work is actually another easy win. So that was one of our challenges. Another one was the environmental responsibility challenge. We are in an interesting position with this one because we are on Low Petergate, which is a very busy street in the centre of York. We got there was no recycling in place. We thought, right, easy win, a bit like Jenny said, tick box, we shall start recycling. However, the recycling that you use on Low Petergate generally picks up from the front. So we put our recycling out onto the front of the street on Low Petergate, where all of our customers walk past every day. And it would sit there. And sometimes we put it out too early, sometimes we put it out too late, sometimes collections were late, sometimes collections were missed. And we were left with soggy, wet cardboard being trampled up and down the street, not making the front of our business look very beautiful. So we cancelled it. We thought this is not, the benefit is outweighing the risks to us. So we cancelled it and we thought, fine, we've tried and failed, the end. And we were like that for probably a year. And then we joined the Good Business Charter. And again, one of the points is all about your environmental responsibility. And we thought, right, okay, we need to look at this another way again. We have to achieve this commitment because we've said we will. If I'm being honest, we didn't try very hard. We tried one option, didn't work for us, and then we ditched it. So just like Jenny said, we had one of our duty managers that I mentioned before who got made the house manager is very, very keen on environmental responsibility. So we tackled her with it and said, what can we do? And actually we spoke to a few different suppliers, and instead of just a general recycling, we split everything now. So we have one supplier does our glass collection, one supplier does our food waste. We've obviously got our general waste. And again, that really helps because a lot of our general waste is charged on weight, and glass and food is extremely heavy. So actually we're saving a little bit of money on our general waste because we are paying a little bit more for our recycling. So again, it just shows that where there's a will, there's a way. And I think for us specifically, the Good Business Charter reminded us that there should be a will. We were maybe a bit lazy and we went, oh, well, it doesn't work for us. Sorry, bye. And actually, when you have a little bit of a nod of somebody saying, try harder, please, you know, there generally are ways around it. And then the last one that I was saying was not really difficult for us, but it was important to us, was commitments 9 and 10, which is about the suppliers, paying suppliers and using local suppliers. My background is very food-based. I've worked with a lot of very good chefs. I'm a bit of a food snob in many ways. We wanted to serve nice food in our restaurant. The business that we inherited catered to slightly different market to who we cater to now. I hesitate to say an older generation, but as a sweeping statement, that would be correct. The food was mostly brought in, it was mostly frozen, it was microwaved, and it was served. The price point was about £12 for a 3-course meal. There is obviously a cost benefit to this. You need fewer chefs, fewer equipment, all sorts to buy something, take it out of the freezer, ping it in the microwave and serve it. It takes a very small amount of time. But that wasn't the sort of food we wanted to serve. And at the time, it wasn't profitable either, for many other reasons. So a poignant example for us is we really wanted to do a rack of lamb dish. We thought that'd be really amazing dish. We got it from Swain's, the butchers on the Shambles Market. They literally deliver it to us by hand each morning in his little white coat. We made this amazing dish, really local, really fresh, really beautiful. We costed it because you have to cost everything in hospitality, and it would need to be sold at £17 on its own to make our profits that we need. And they're generally agreed industry profits. We're not trying to make a fortune. I think it's 30, well, it's a 30% GP is what we want. So you can imagine that going from £12 for 3 courses to one dish for £17 was a little bit scary. But we wanted to do it, and we were still new at the time. So we added it to the menu, fully expecting that nobody would order it. In a few days' time, we'd have to take it off, and we would have tried and failed. However, that became the most popular dish on our menu. It remains on our menu to this day, probably nearly 3 years later. It's one of our signature dishes. It has changed a little bit, but there is still this core signature lamb dish on the menu. And I think that just showed us that there is a different market out there for people who do want great quality products and service. Just like Jenny said, we were so scared about what had been happening previously that we thought this will never sell, and it outsold everything we ever had. So that was amazing for us to kind of remind us that you can look at things differently. So today we use local suppliers for everything: meat, fish, tea, coffee, beer, gin. And leading into the last point is that the benefit of that is that you do get to know them. We know the guys that work at our suppliers mostly. They pop in. We certainly know the fishmonger and the butchers because, as I say, they walk around in their coats and wellies. And then we pay them promptly because we work closely with them. It would be embarrassing not to. They would, they would ask us about it. We want to pay them fairly because they look after us fairly. So yeah, that's just a brilliant benefit anyway. So that's just a few examples. I hope that's enough. I didn't want to go through all 10 points, but I guess that my point is if you think you can't, you probably can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was absolutely amazing and really inspiring as well. That's just great to hear that the housekeeping manager was one you tasked with sorting out the recycling, and then just being able to that framework being a prompt in these different areas. So that's just great to hear. Thank you for sharing. And then Becky's going to share her experience, very different type of business. So over to you, Becky.
Thanks so much. So my name's Becky Martin. I'm the founder and director of a company called Boo Coaching and Consulting. We're based in Bolton and we work across the whole of the UK. Our kind of core mission and purpose is to help bosses to be better bosses. I know Rebecca touched on the experience of being led well or not so well, and we know that life's too short to work somewhere that makes you miserable. So we spend a lot of our time helping people to really thrive in and out of work. So that's through our leadership programs, our coaching programs, and our workplace wellbeing initiatives. So we've kind of fully immersed in the kind of workplace experience. So it would be really weird of us not to walk the talk as well. So one of the things that we were asked to do today was just to explore a little bit and share with you some key examples around how we're embedding those responsible practices. And for Boo, I launched the company. I'm the only director. I kind of launched it with an idea. I wanted to do a bit of coaching in 2012. I was going to work freelance. I wasn't going to run a company. I wasn't going to be anybody's boss. But I got too busy. And one of the things that I did first of all was when I did launch the company in kind of 2015, I had a real strong sense that it needed to add value in our community. It could do both. It could be a profitable organisation, but it could also it could be a great employer. It could be, part of the community that we serve as well. And so we've just grown that over time. And roll forward to, I'd say, about February 2020, just at the early stages of the Good Business Charter, and the kind of the initial stages. I think we were possibly one of the first very small businesses to become accredited, and I was very excited to do that. And I suppose adding on what Rebecca's already shared, the kind of the core areas that I want to share with you today, how we do it at Boo. A few examples for us have been, yes, we're a living wage champion. We're an accredited living hours organisation as well as the living wage. That means that, you know, our apprentice is paid at the real living wage as well. It means that we champion the real living wage within our community. We're part of the SME steering group on a kind of a national focus, really helping to boost living wage membership across the entire country as well. So we're really active in our campaigning, I suppose. That's where we kind of take it that step further. And one of the things that we've participated in and become quite a key member of is something that's quite unique to Bolton, but I'd encourage you to think about how you could do that in your own local areas. So wherever your business is based, there'll be a bunch of other like-minded folk like yourselves who were really wanting to do things differently. And so we're part of something called the Bolton Family. Now, the Bolton Family is a collection of businesses, statutory organisations and voluntary organisations who are all committed to improving and enhancing our town. So we've got this focus on how we can create a better Bolton, and we connect that up to the governance and the structures of our town. And what we're trying to promote is that collectively, as a group of businesses who are socially responsible, who want to create social value in our hometown, that we can do more of that together, rather than one big organisation trying to do it all. Lots of organisations doing smaller aspects of that. And so we champion something called the 2030 Social Value Challenge. And within that, I've got a little card here. You might not be able to see it. That's our current 2030. I will send it out. I will happily share the link with you. But it's almost like a bit of business bingo, where we try and encourage businesses in our community to think about how they can link up with the local credit union, for example, from a staff savings account perspective, or what else have we got on here? Maybe sponsoring or becoming a guardian for one of our local charity organisations, or demonstrating that they're a living wage employer, for example, or paying their fair share of tax and so on. There's environmental commitments to it as well. So it's a community that is growing and that is has a loud voice in our town, quite unique really. So be happy to share how you might be able to kind of link in with us, or how you might be able to establish your own kind of local business community to kind of help you on a more local scale. But other things that we are really proud of, that really show that we can do things creatively, really, from a very small business perspective, is around our values. One of our values is actually caring for our team, our customers and our community. And we embedded that within our recent recruitment process for our new office manager. So we were looking for recruiting locally, so that we can, you know, kind of that income goes back into our local community and generates further income. And with that comes our commitment to our supply chain as well. So my advice and guidance to anyone who's not sure whether to, you know, whether this is for them or like Rebecca said, it's too hard. There's too many other things that we could, you know, too many factors that will get in the way. It's too expensive. One of the things that we worked with other small businesses on was just helping you to think about making small changes, small tweaks to your supply chain. So not making huge investment or costing lots and lots of money, but, you know, looking at changing one supplier this quarter that is, you know, within a 10 or 15 mile radius, for example, of your business, or making a decision to purchase from for example, a living wage employer. So we've recently reviewed our insurance policies. They came up for renewal a couple of weeks ago, and we have made the commitment to choose a living wage registered employer to be our new insurance provider. So there's small changes like that can have a major impact and can really role model it for other businesses as well. I'm just thinking about other things that we do. We've got in terms of our well-being and kind of staff experience, we're quite unique at Boo in that we've created a range of really supportive policies and approaches that don't cost us a huge amount of money, but make such a difference, as we were talking about earlier, as Jenny was saying earlier, around retaining brilliant staff, keeping people well and healthy. So our, we don't have huge sickness absence, we don't have a high turnover of staff. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that we've been quite clever with our policies. So we have an unlimited paid time off policy, which means that any colleague in the business, doesn't matter how long they've worked for us or not, they can book time off that they need without having to, there's not a set number of holidays, so they don't have to bank time or save time just in case a relative gets sick or they need to take the dog to the vet. We will be flexible, and as long as we can meet our customers' needs, and as long as somebody's not taking 6 months a year off work, then we're able to really support people to have happy, healthy lives outside and beyond work as well. That often means in practice that we get asked this a lot. We get asked if, oh, that must be a nightmare to manage. It's actually really straightforward for us. The challenge I have as the director is making sure people take enough leave. Because once you remove the fear or the panic around having to save time off or bank it, you end up, people are a little bit more relaxed. So people just book when they need. And I oftentimes have to chase people out of the building to say, you have to take more days off, and you've not taken your statutory leave. So that's the risk I face really more than anything else. So that I think is a real a quick win for me. We're a small business, we're able to manage that more effectively than say if we had 50 plus employees, but follow our journey I suppose as we grow, and I'll keep you updated on how that's playing out for us. A couple of other factors that really help us in terms of our well-being of our staff is that we have a beauty bank and we have a time bank. So the beauty bank is something that we created so that we could gather unwanted, unused toiletries, nice moisturisers, lovely gift sets that you get for Christmas that you don't want, and then we repurpose those. We send them and share them with the charities that we partner with. We link it to our staff team days, we link it to the customer support days, and our customers also contribute to that as well, so they know that they're giving back in a way to help their community. And on top of that, we also bank time. So there's a time element that again boosts happiness and well-being, because people in the team are contributing in ways that matter to them. So we work with one charity that has a little cute coffee van that requires volunteers. So often you'll find one of the team serving coffee at a park run or up a hill on the outskirts of Bolton on a sunny day. And so again, generating a kind of a happiness level, I suppose, or a boost in morale that again is not a significant expense to Boo, and actually is it actually sets us apart, and it becomes one of the main reasons why our customers make a choice to work with us. A lot of our customers are big public sector organisations. We go up against lots of other big consultancy firms from tendering and contracting perspectives, and often what sets us apart and helps us to win the business is our demonstration that we're doing things differently, from a creation of social value, from a good and responsible business element, and that for us, we've got years of evidence to support that. So it's actually helping us to win more work from a profitable business perspective. I know I'm racing through them all. Let me see what else I've got here. But I talked about our values, I talked about Bolton family and our hours. I think I've kind of covered everything. I just wanted to say also that I've stolen some ideas from today, and I'm currently in the process of signing off our last year's impact report. So I'll be putting the Good Business Charter prompts at the back and demonstrating and setting some challenges for next year as well as with the team around how we'll take those steps even further. So if you've got any questions or if you want to find out any more, then please feel free to ask away.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Becky. I'm glad that you've given all you're doing. I'm glad that there were still new things you could take away and add, which is really good. And also, I must pick your brains about social value. I think that's just such a brilliant, it's just really encouraging for me to hear that as a small business, you are able to go up against the big guys in public sector procurement. And, we just want to champion as many small businesses as possible who are really caring about their community, and yeah, really great stuff.